The stars were cold and silent in this part of space. No one came here. No trade ships. No explorers. Just darkness and the dying light of an old red star. Fleet Commander Rovik stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at the emptiness. He was tall, even for a Velker. His gray skin was marked with the scars of many battles. His yellow eyes had seen empires fall. He feared nothing in this universe. "Commander," said a voice behind him, "our sensors have found something strange." Rovik turned to look at his science officer. Tella was young for her position, but she was smart. Her 4 fingers moved quickly across her console as data filled the screens around her. "Show me," Rovik said. The main screen flickered. An image appeared. It was a ship, but it was unlike any ship Rovik had ever seen. The vessel was huge. It was nearly 3 times bigger than his own flagship. Its shape was strange and angular, like a giant metal beast sleeping in the void. The hull was dark, almost black, and covered with marks and scars. This ship had seen many battles. What species built this? Rovik asked. Tella shook her head slowly. "Unknown, Commander. The design matches nothing in our database. The technology appears to be primitive." "Primitive?" Rovik stepped closer to the screen. "A ship that size with primitive technology?" "Yes, Commander. Their engines use basic fusion reactions. Their shields are simple energy barriers. Their weapons appear to be kinetic-based, projectiles and explosives. Very old technology." Rovik smiled. His sharp teeth showed in the dim light of the bridge. The Velker Dominion had conquered 37 star systems. They had crushed species with far better technology than this. A primitive ship, no matter how big, was nothing to fear. "Can you identify the species?" he asked. Tella worked her console for a moment. "I am scanning their database now. They have weak security systems. The species calls themselves humans. They are bipedal, warm-blooded, and come from a planet called Earth." "Earth," Rovik repeated. The word felt strange on his tongue. "I have never heard of it." "Neither have I, Commander. There is no record of this species in any galactic archive." This was interesting. A new species meant new territory, new resources, new slaves for the Dominion. Rovik felt excitement building in his chest. "Is the ship active?" he asked. "Barely, Commander. Life support is at minimum levels. Most systems appear to be offline. I detect very few life signs. Perhaps a dozen at most." "A dozen?" Rovik laughed. "On a ship that size? It must be a derelict. A ghost ship." He turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. All 12 ships will approach. Prepare boarding parties. I want that vessel secured within the hour." The Velker fleet moved through space like predators hunting weak prey. 12 warships, each one a masterpiece of galactic engineering. Plasma cannons, graviton torpedoes, shields that could stop almost any attack. They were the pride of the Dominion. As they grew closer, Rovik studied the human ship more carefully. It was ugly by Velker standards. No smooth curves, no elegant lines, just hard angles and thick metal plates. The hull was covered with what looked like armor, layer after layer of heavy plating scarred by countless impacts. Why would they need so much armor? Tella wondered aloud. Rovik shrugged. Primitive species often rely on brute force. They do not understand elegant solutions. But something bothered him. Those scars on the hull. There were thousands of them. Burn marks, impact craters, gouges in the metal. This ship had been in many, many battles. And it was still flying. "Commander," Tella said suddenly, "I have found something." Writing on the hull. The screen zoomed in. Strange symbols appeared. The computer translated them automatically. Uens Dokto. What does it mean? Rovik asked. Uens appears to be a military designation. United Earth Navy ship. Dokto is the name of the vessel. Tella paused. There is more writing below it. The screen shifted. More symbols. More translation. We remember Rovik stared at the words. Something about them made him feel cold. He did not know why. It was just a phrase. Just words from a primitive species. What happened to their planet? He asked quietly. Tella searched the database. Her face changed. Something in her expression shifted from curiosity to something else. Something like concern. Commander. Their historical records indicate Earth was destroyed. Over 200 years ago. The bridge went silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Even Rovik felt something twist in his stomach. Destroyed? How? War, Commander. A terrible war. The records are unclear, but it appears their entire solar system was devastated. This ship, and a few others, are all that remain of their species. Rovik looked at the human vessel again. 200 years. This ship had been wandering space for 200 years. Fighting, surviving, refusing to die, that he shook off the strange feeling. It did not matter. The humans were weak now. Only a few survivors on a dying ship. They would surrender quickly. They would join the Dominion, one way or another. Continue the approach, he ordered. Signal strike Captain Morak. His team will board first. I want control of that ship before the next cycle. The Vulkar fleet surrounded the Dokdo like wolves circling a wounded animal. 40 soldiers prepared to board. They checked their weapons. They reviewed the ship's layout. They expected no real resistance. None of them knew what waited inside. None of them understood what humans were truly capable of. None of them had ever met a species that had lost everything and simply refused to stop fighting. They would learn soon enough. Strike Captain Morak was the best soldier in the Vulkar fleet. He had killed enemies on 20 different worlds. His armor was decorated with the marks of his victories. He feared nothing. The airlock door opened with a loud hiss. Cold air rushed out from inside the human ship. Morak stepped through first, his weapon raised, his eyes scanning the darkness. Forward, he ordered. His 40 soldiers followed him inside. The corridor was dark. Only small red lights along the floor showed the way. Emergency power. The ship was barely alive. Morak smiled. This would be easy. They moved slowly through the ship. The walls were made of thick metal, painted gray. Strange objects hung on the walls. Morak stopped to look at one. It was a flat image, like a picture, showing a landscape. Green plants. Blue water. A yellow sun in a bright sky. What is this? One of his soldiers asked. Their dead world, Morak said. Earth. They carry pictures of it everywhere. There were more pictures as they moved deeper into the ship. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Faces of humans. Cities with tall buildings. Mountains covered in white snow. Oceans that stretched forever. A whole world frozen in images. Memories of something that no longer existed. Morak felt something strange in his chest. It was almost like sadness. He pushed the feeling away. These creatures were weak. They clung to the past instead of accepting reality. The Dominion would teach them to let go. They reached the command center after 20 minutes of walking. The door was already open. Inside, the room was larger than Morak expected. Screens covered the walls, most of them dark. Console sat empty. Chairs waited for crew members who were not there, but one chair was not empty. A human sat in the center of the room. A female, Morak guessed from the data they had collected. She was small, very small. Her skin was a light brown color. Her hair was black and cut short. She wore a uniform that had seen better days. Faded, worn. Old. She did not move when the Vulcar soldiers entered. She did not look afraid. She just sat there, watching them with dark eyes that held no fear. Morak walked toward her. His soldiers spread out around the room, their weapons pointed at the lone human. "I am Strike Captain Morak of the Vulcar Dominion," he announced. His translator turned his words into sounds the human could understand. "You are now property of the Dominion. This ship and all its contents belong to us. Surrender peacefully and you will not be harmed." The human woman tilted her head slightly. She looked at Morak like he was a curious animal. Then she looked at the soldiers around the room. 40 armed warriors in advanced armor. She was one small female in an old uniform. She should have been terrified. Instead, she smiled. "My name is Captain Una Park," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "Commanding officer of the United Earth Navy ship Dokdo. You are standing on my ship." Morak laughed. "Your ship? You are one person. One weak, primitive person. What can you do against us?" Captain Park looked at him for a long moment. Something in her eyes changed. The smile faded. What replaced it was something Morak had never seen before. It was cold. It was hard. It was the look of someone who had seen terrible things and survived them all. "You made a mistake," she said quietly. "You boarded a human warship without permission. In the old days, before Earth died, that was considered an act of war." Morak raised his weapon. "Threats will not save you, human. You are alone." "Alone?" Captain Park shook her head slowly. "No, I am not alone. I have never been alone." She touched a button on her chair. Her voice echoed through the ship, carried by speakers in every corridor, every room, every hidden chamber. "Computer. Authorization Park 77. Wake up the crew. All hands to battle stations." For a moment, nothing happened. Morak laughed again. "Your crew? What crew?" "Our sensors detected only a dozen life signs on this entire ship." "Your sensors," Captain Park said, "are not very good." Then the ship woke up. It started as a sound. A deep humming that seemed to come from everywhere. The lights flickered. Screens came alive. The floor beneath Morak's feet began to vibrate. Then the walls opened. Morak watched in horror as panels slid aside throughout the command center. Behind them were chambers. Hundreds of chambers. And in each chamber was a human. They were in cryosleep. He realized, frozen, hidden. His sensors had not detected them because they were barely alive. But now they were waking up. Now they were stepping out of their chambers. Now they were reaching for weapons. A tall human male emerged first. He was older, with gray in his hair and scars on his face. He held a rifle that glowed with plasma energy. His eyes were sharp and clear, already scanning for targets. "Chief Taiho Kim," Captain Park said. "Thank you for joining us." "My pleasure, Captain." The man called Taiho looked at the Vulcar soldiers. "We have guests, I see." More humans emerged. Dozens, then hundreds. They came from everywhere. From the walls. From the floors. From chambers hidden throughout the ship. Men and women. Young and old. All of them armed. All of them awake. Morak's soldiers backed toward the center of the room. They were surrounded now, outnumbered. The humans moved like trained soldiers, taking positions, covering angles, working together without needing to speak. How many? Morak whispered. Captain Park stood up from her chair. She was shorter than he expected. Her head barely reached his chest. But somehow, she seemed larger than anyone in the room. 2,000, she said. 2,000 soldiers. 2,000 survivors. 2,000 humans who have been fighting since before your grandfather was born. She stepped closer to him. You have 30 seconds to return to your ships. After that, we stop being polite. Morak looked at his soldiers. He looked at the hundreds of weapons pointed at them. He looked at Captain Una Park, this small human female who commanded a ghost ship full of warriors. He made the only smart decision of his life. Retreat, he ordered. All units retreat to the shuttle. The Velker soldiers ran. They did not walk. They ran. Behind them, 2,000 humans watched them go. No one fired. No one chased them. They simply watched with cold, patient eyes. Captain Park returned to her chair. Around her, her crew took their positions at consoles that hummed with new power. The Dokdo was awake now. The Dokdo was ready. Lieutenant Minho, Park said calmly. How long until weapons are online? A young man at a nearby console checked his screens. 3 minutes, Captain. Park nodded. Engineering. Status report. A woman's voice came through the speakers. This is Chief Engineer Somi Lee. Reactor is at 60% and climbing. Shields coming online now. We can fight, Captain. Park looked at the main screen. Outside, the Velker fleet waited. 12 warships. Advanced weapons. Superior technology. They had no idea what was coming. All hands, Captain Park announced. This is your captain speaking. We have hostile vessels surrounding us. They came to our home uninvited. They came to take what is ours. She paused. Show them why that was a mistake. The Dokdo's engines roared to life. The old warship turned toward the enemy fleet. And somewhere in the cold darkness of space, the real battle was about to begin. Fleet Commander Rovik watched his soldiers run back to their shuttle. He watched them fly back to the fleet as fast as their small craft could carry them. He listened as Strike Captain Morak reported what he had seen inside the human ship. 2,000 soldiers, hidden, waiting. Rovik felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt doubt, but doubt was weakness. Doubt was for a lesser species. The Velker were conquerors. They did not run from primitives, no matter how many there were. All ships, Rovik ordered. Target the human vessel. Fire at will. The Velker fleet obeyed. 12 warships opened fire at the same moment. Plasma cannons sent bolts of superheated energy across the void. Graviton torpedoes launched from every ship, each one powerful enough to crack a small moon. The barrage was massive. It was overwhelming. It was enough firepower to destroy a space station. The Dokdo shields flared bright white as the attacks hit. The old ship shook. Systems screamed warnings. Hull plates groaned under the pressure. On the bridge, Captain Una Park gripped her chair as the deck tilted beneath her. Sparks flew from a damaged console. Smoke filled the air. But she did not panic. She had been through worse. Damage report, she called out. Shields at 40%, Lieutenant Minho Beek answered. His fingers flew across his console. Minor hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Weapons are online. Then return fire, Park said. Show them what we have. The Dokdo was old. Its technology was primitive by galactic standards. But the humans had learned something important in their 200 years of wandering. Sometimes simple was better. The railguns fired. They were massive weapons built into the spine of the ship. They used electromagnetic force to launch projectiles at incredible speeds. No fancy plasma. No complex energy beams. Just chunks of solid tungsten, each one weighing several tons, moving at a fraction of the speed of light. The first projectile hit a Velka cruiser in the center of its hull. The ship's advanced shields flickered for a moment, trying to stop the attack. They failed. The tungsten slug punched through the shield like it was made of paper. It tore through the hull. It kept going until it exploded out the other side. The cruiser broke apart. One moment it was there. The next moment, it was a cloud of debris spreading through space. Commander Rovik watched in shock. One shot, one primitive projectile. His cruiser was gone. Impossible, he whispered. The ducto fired again. And again. The railguns sent death across the void with terrible speed. Another cruiser died. Then another. The tungsten projectiles did not care about advanced shields. They did not care about superior technology. They only cared about mass and velocity. Simple physics. Brutal results. "Commander!" Tella shouted from her console. "They are launching missiles." Hundreds of small objects flew from the ducto sides. They were not elegant weapons. They looked crude, ugly, almost homemade. But each one carried a nuclear warhead. Each one sought out a Velker ship with simple, reliable targeting systems. The Velker point defense systems shot down many of them. But not all. A destroyer vanished in a flash of nuclear fire. A frigate lost its engines and began to drift. The battle had barely started, and Rovik had already lost 5 ships. On the ducto, Captain Park watched the battle unfold on her screens. Her face showed no joy, no excitement, only tired determination. "Captain," Chief Engineer Somi Lee's voice came through the speakers. "We have hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. Fire teams are responding. Reactor is holding steady, but we took damage to the port shield generator. I can give you maybe 60% shields on that side." "Do your best, Somi," Park replied. "Keep us flying." Commander Don Shin, her second-in-command, stood beside her chair. He was a big man with a calm face. He had served with Park for 30 years. He had seen many battles. "They are regrouping," he said, pointing at the screen. "The remaining ships are forming a defensive formation." Park nodded. "They are scared now. Good. Scared enemies make mistakes. We cannot take much more of this, Captain." Donhyun's voice was quiet, meant only for her. "The ship is old. We have been fighting and running for so long. One day, our luck will run out." Park looked at him. Her eyes were tired but strong. "Then today is not that day. We keep fighting. We always keep fighting. That is who we are." She stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. Through the main window, she could see the flashes of weapons fire, the burning hulks of destroyed ships, the chaos of battle. This was her life. This had always been her life. Una Park was born on the ducto. Her mother was born on the ducto. Her grandmother remembered Earth, but only barely. She had been a child when the homeworld died. A child who watched everything burn from the window of an escape ship. 200 years. For 200 years, the survivors had wandered. They had fought pirates and raiders. They had survived diseases and famines. They had buried their dead in the cold void of space because there was no Earth to return them to. The ducto was not just a ship. It was home. It was family. It was the last piece of Earth that still existed. "Captain!" Minho shouted. "New contacts." 3 ships just emerged from fold space. Park spun around. Her heart stopped for a moment. New enemies? More Velker ships? They could not survive another fleet. But then the identification codes came through, and Park felt tears forming in her eyes. "It's the Sejong," Minho said, his voice breaking. "And the Gwanggetto. And the Hechi. Captain, our fleet has found us." 3 more human warships appeared on the screen. They were smaller than the ducto, but they were beautiful. Scarred and patched and old, just like every human ship. But alive. Fighting. Here. Captain Junho Kang's voice came through the communication system. "Ducto, this is Sejong Actual. Sorry, we are late. We had some trouble with our navigation systems. Looks like you started the party without us." Park laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in months. "Sejong, you have perfect timing. We have 7 enemy ships remaining. Feel free to introduce yourselves." "With pleasure, Doctor. All ships, engage." The 3 new human vessels joined the battle. They were faster than the Doctor, smaller and more agile. They danced between the Valkyr ships, firing railguns and missiles, drawing fire away from the damaged flagship. Commander Rovik watched his fleet die. He watched his superior technology fail against primitive weapons and stubborn enemies. He watched everything he believed about the universe fall apart. "Commander," Tella said quietly, "we should retreat. We cannot win this." Rovik wanted to argue. He wanted to fight. But he was not stupid. He could see the truth. These humans, these primitive, homeless, desperate creatures, had beaten him. "All ships," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Fall back. Retreat to the Dominion border." The surviving Valkyr ships turned and ran. 3 of them limped away, damaged and broken. They left behind the debris of 9 destroyed vessels. 9 ships. Thousands of Valkyr lives, gone. On the Dokdo, Captain Park watched them go. She did not celebrate. She did not cheer. She just sat down in her chair and let out a long, slow breath. They had survived. Again. Somehow, against all odds, they had survived again. But the ship was hurt. Her people were tired. And somewhere out there, the Valkyr Dominion was waiting. This was not the end. It was just another battle in a war that never seemed to stop. "All hands," Park said softly. "Stand down from battle stations. Medical teams, begin treating the wounded. Damage control, start repairs." She paused. "And someone make some tea. We have earned it." The battle was over, but Commander Rovik's nightmare was just beginning. His flagship drifted in space. Engines damaged, shields offline. 2 other ships floated nearby, equally broken. They had escaped the battle, but they could not escape the truth of what had happened. 9 ships destroyed. Thousands of soldiers dead. An entire fleet, one of the finest in the Valkyr Dominion, crushed by primitives. Rovik sat alone in his quarters. The lights were dim. He held a glass of strong drink in his hand, but he had not tasted it. He just stared at the wall and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The door opened. Science Officer Tella entered without asking permission. She looked tired. Her gray skin was pale, and her eyes were troubled. "I have been analyzing the battle," she said quietly. "Studying the humans. I think you need to see this." She activated a small screen on Rovik's desk. Images began to play. Video captured from the sensors during the fight. The first clip showed a human damage control team. A plasma burst had torn a hole in their hull. Fire was spreading. The corridor was filling with toxic smoke. Any sensible species would have sealed the area and let the fire burn out. The humans ran into the fire. Rovik watched them work. They wore no protective suits. They breathed the poisonous air. Their skin burned and blistered. But they kept working. They put out the fire. They sealed the breach. They saved their ship. 3 of them collapsed afterward. They had to be carried away by their friends. But they had done their job. Why? Rovik asked. Why would they hurt themselves like that? Watch more, Tella said. The next clip showed a weapons crew. Their autoloader system had failed. The railgun could not fire. In any normal military, they would have switched to backup weapons. They would have waited for repairs. The humans loaded the railgun by hand. Each tungsten slug weighed nearly a ton. The loading mechanism required precise timing. One mistake could crush a person flat. But the human crew worked together, lifting and pushing and pulling, their muscles straining, their faces covered in sweat. They fired the railgun 6 more times during the battle. Every shot was loaded by human hands. "They are insane," Rovik whispered. "There is more," Tella said. Her voice was strange now, almost respectful. The final clip made Rovik's blood go cold. During the battle, a Velker torpedo had gotten through the human defenses. It was heading straight for the Dokdo's engine section. If it hit, the ship would lose all power. The battle would be over. A small human fighter launched from the Dokdo's hangar. The pilot was a young man. Later, Rovik would learn his name was Lieutenant Jiho Han. He had been a pilot for only 2 years. Jiho flew his fighter directly into the path of the torpedo. His weapons were too weak to destroy it. His fighter was too slow to outrun it. But he could get in the way. He could put his tiny ship between the torpedo and his home. The torpedo hit him instead. The fighter vanished in a ball of fire. The torpedo was destroyed. The Dokdo survived. Rovik stared at the screen for a long time after the clip ended. He did not speak. He did not move. He knew he would die, Tella said softly. There was no chance of survival. But he did it anyway. He sacrificed himself for his people. Why? Rovik's voice cracked. Why would anyone do that? Because he was human. Tella sat down across from her commander. I have been studying their history, Rovik. Everything in their database. Everything they brought with them from their dead world. She took a deep breath. They are not like us. They are not like any species in the Dominion. They have something different. Something we do not understand. What? They call it many things. Duty, honor, love, stubbornness. But I think it is simpler than that. Tella looked at the screen where Jiho Han's face was frozen. A young man, barely more than a child. Dead now. They simply refuse to give up. No matter how bad things get. No matter how hopeless it seems. They keep fighting. Rovik thought about everything he had seen. The damage control teams running into fire. The weapons crews working with their bare hands. The young pilot flying to his death without hesitation. Their world was destroyed, he said slowly. Everything they knew, everything they loved, gone. Most species would have surrendered to despair. They would have let themselves die. Yes, Tella agreed. That is what we would do. That is what any logical species would do. But they didn't. No, they built ships. They gathered survivors. They flew into the darkness of space with nothing but hope and determination. For 200 years, they have been wandering, fighting, surviving. Tella paused. They have lost everything, Rovik. Everything except each other. And they will do anything to protect what remains. Rovik stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the human fleet was regrouping, repairing their damage, preparing for whatever came next. We attacked them, he said. We tried to take their ship. Their home, yes. They must hate us now. They will want revenge. Tella shook her head. I do not think so. I have been listening to their communications. They are not talking about revenge. They are not talking about hunting us down. They are talking about repairs. About their wounded. About finding a safe place to rest. I don't understand. Neither do I, Commander. But I think they are tired. Not just physically. Tired in their souls. They have been fighting for so long. All they want is peace. A home. A place where their children can grow up without fear. Rovik turned to look at her. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we have a choice. We can report this battle to the Dominion. They will send more ships. More soldiers. A larger fleet to crush these humans once and for all. Tella stood up. Or we can try something different. Different how? We can talk to them. Not as conquerors, not as enemies, as equals. She stepped closer to her commander. Rovik, in all my years studying alien species, I have never seen anything like these humans. They are small. They are primitive. They are weak by our standards. But there is something inside them. Something that makes them dangerous in a way that has nothing to do with weapons or technology. What is that? Tella thought for a moment. Then she said one word. Well, the word hung in the air between them. Rovik thought about everything that had happened. He thought about his lost ships, his dead soldiers, the mighty Velker Dominion, humbled by refugees with no home. Contact them, he said finally. Tell them I want to talk. Tell them I come in peace. And if the Dominion asks what happened here, Rovik smiled grimly. Then I will tell them the truth. I will tell them that we met a new species today. A species that should have died 200 years ago. A species that lost their world and kept fighting anyway. A species that we would be fools to make into enemies. He looked out the window again. Out there in the cold darkness of space, the human ships waited, scarred, damaged, barely holding together, but still alive. Still fighting. Still refusing to die. Arrange a meeting, Rovik said. I think it is time we learn more about these humans. The meeting place was neutral ground. A small moon orbiting a gas giant, far from any claimed territory. No weapons. No soldiers. Just two leaders, meeting face to face. Captain Una Park walked across the rocky surface toward the meeting dome. She wore her dress uniform, old and faded but clean. Behind her, Commander Doing Shin walked as her witness and guard. Inside the dome, Fleet Commander Rovik waited. He too had only one companion. Science Officer Tella stood beside him, her datapad ready. The airlock sealed behind Park as she entered. For a long moment, no one spoke. Human and Velker looked at each other. Enemies who had tried to kill each other only days ago. Rovik broke the silence. I expected you to be taller. Park almost smiled. I expected you to be smarter. Tella made a small sound of alarm. But Rovik laughed. It was a harsh sound, but it was real. Fair enough, he said. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. A table had been prepared in the center of the dome. Chairs on both sides. Simple refreshments. Park sat down across from the Velker commander. She placed her hands flat on the table where he could see them. You wanted to talk, she said. Talk. Rovik studied her face. She was so small, so fragile looking. Her skin was soft. Her bones were thin. By Velker standards, she was barely more than a child, but her eyes were ancient. Tired and hard and full of fire that refused to die. I have been watching your people, Rovik said carefully. Studying how you fight. Trying to understand you. And what did you learn? That you are terrifying. Park raised an eyebrow. Terrifying? We barely survived your attack. Our ship is falling apart. We lost good people in that battle. Yes, and yet you won. 9 of my ships are gone. Thousands of my soldiers are dead. The greatest military in this sector, beaten by refugees with primitive weapons. Rovik leaned forward. How? Why? What are you? Park was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. We are survivors, Commander. That is all. 200 years ago, our world was destroyed. Not by accident. Not by nature. By war. A terrible, stupid war that should never have happened. She looked at her hands, small, weak, human hands. When Earth died, there were only a few thousand of us left, scattered across ships that were never meant for long journeys. We had no home, no plan, no hope. But you kept going, Tella said quietly. Yes, we kept going. Because that is what humans do. We fight, We survive. We refuse to surrender, even when surrender would be easier. Park looked up at Rovik. You asked what we are. We are the ones who would not die. That is our only special quality. Pure, stupid stubbornness. Rovik sat back in his chair. He thought about his own people. The Velker Dominion was powerful, rich, advanced. They had everything they needed. If their homeworld was destroyed, would they have the strength to continue? Would they fight for 200 years just to survive? He did not think so. I have a question, he said. In the battle, one of your pilots flew his ship into a torpedo. He died to save the Dokdo. I have watched the footage many times. I cannot understand why he did it. Park's face changed. Grief passed through her eyes like a cloud across the sun. His name was Lieutenant Jiho Han. He was 23 years old. He grew up on our ship. His parents grew up on our ship. He never knew anything except the walls of the Dokdo and the stars outside. She paused. He died because that ship is our home. Our family. Everything we have left. He died because he loved us, and love makes humans do impossible things. The dome was silent. Outside, stars wheeled through the sky, cold and indifferent to the small dramas playing out below. Rovik made his decision. I have the authority to make treaties on behalf of the Dominion, he said. Within certain limits. I cannot give you much, but I can give you something. Park's eyes sharpened. What are you offering? Safe passage through our space. We will not attack you again. Other fleets will be told to leave you alone. Rovik paused. And there are 3 worlds on the edge of our territory. Habitable planets. Unclaimed and unwanted. Too far from our core systems to be useful. But they have air and water and land. Park stopped breathing. She felt Do-hyun's hand grip her shoulder. You are offering us planets? She whispered. A home? I am offering you a chance. The worlds are rough, undeveloped. Building a colony will be hard work. But you humans seem to enjoy hard work. Tears were forming in Park's eyes. She did not try to hide them. For 200 years, her people had dreamed of this moment. A home, a real home. Somewhere to put down roots. Somewhere their children could play under an open sky. Why? She asked. After everything we did to your fleet, why would you help us? Rovik stood up slowly. He walked to the dome's window and looked out at the stars. Because I made a mistake, he said. I saw your ship and thought you were weak. Easy prey. I was wrong. You are the strongest species I have ever met. He turned to face her. And because the universe is big and cold and cruel, your people have already suffered enough. I do not need to add to that suffering. Tella added quietly. And because someday, the Dominion may need friends who know how to fight against impossible odds. Allies who never give up. Park wiped her eyes. She stood up and walked to stand beside Rovik at the window. My grandmother remembered Earth, she said. She used to tell me stories about blue oceans and green forests. Birds singing in the morning. Rain falling on fields of flowers. I thought those were just fairy tales. Dreams of a world that never really existed. She looked at the Velker commander. Thank you, Rovik. Thank you for giving my people a chance to make new stories. Rovik nodded solemnly. I hope your stories have happy endings, Captain. Your people have earned them. 10 years passed. The colony on the 3rd planet was called New Sol. It was a beautiful world. Not quite like Earth. The sky was more green than blue. The plants were strange colors. But it had oceans and mountains and seasons that changed through the year. Admiral Yuna. Park stood on a hillside above the main settlement. She was older now. Gray had crept into her hair. Lines had deepened on her face. But her eyes were still sharp. Still strong. Below her, Children played in fields of alien grass. Human children. The first generation born under an open sky in 200 years. Behind her, old friends gathered. Chief Daiho Kim, retired now but still as tough as ever. Lieutenant Minho Beek, now a captain with his own ship. Chief Engineer Somi Lee, who had kept the Dokdo flying through countless battles. Commander Dan Shin, gray-haired and smiling, watching his grandchildren run and laugh. "It still feels like a dream," Minho said. "Sometimes I wake up and expect to see the metal walls of the Dokdo. It takes me a moment to remember that I have a window now. A real window, with real sunlight." "I know what you mean," Somi agreed. 30 years I spent in engineering. The smell of recycled air and machine oil. Now I wake up to wind and flowers. My brain cannot quite believe it. Park smiled. "The Dokdo is still up there," she said, pointing at the sky. "Orbiting above us. A museum now. A reminder of where we came from. A monument to everyone we lost," Taiho added quietly. "All the people who died so we could stand here today." They were silent for a moment, remembering. So many names. So many faces. So many friends and family left behind in the cold void of space. A young woman walked up the hill toward them. She wore the uniform of the United Earth Navy. New version. Better fabric. But the same basic design. "Admiral Park?" she said. "I hope I am not interrupting." Park turned to look at her. "Not at all, Ensign Hanacho. Please join us." Hannah was special. She was the first human born on New Seoul soil. The first generation that had never seen the inside of a refugee ship. The first generation that knew what it meant to have a home. "I have been thinking," Hannah said, "about Earth, about everything our ancestors went through. And I was wondering." She hesitated. "Do you think we will ever stop fighting? Will there ever be a time when we do not need soldiers and warships?" Park looked at the young ensign for a long moment. Then she looked at her old friends. At the children playing below. At the sun setting over the alien hills of their new home. "Someday," she said. "Maybe someday, but not today. Today, we remember where we came from. We honor the people who sacrificed everything so we could be here. And we stay ready to protect what they gave us." She put her hand on Hannah's shoulder. "But we also build. We plant crops and raise children and write songs. We create as much as we destroy. That is the human way. We fight when we must, but we never forget why we are fighting." Hannah nodded slowly. "For each other." "Yes, Ensign. For each other. Always for each other." The sun sank below the horizon. Stars appeared in the green-tinted sky. Somewhere up there, the Dokdo orbited in silence. Old and scarred and finally at rest. And somewhere in the settlement below, a mother sang a lullaby to her daughter. A song about a beautiful blue world that once existed. A world called Earth. A world that lived on, not in the stars, but in the hearts of the people who refused to forget it. The human story was not over. It had barely begun, but for the first time in 200 years, it had hope.